The news about the alien invasion spread across Earth faster than any wildfire in history. Every television station, radio broadcast, and internet channel carried the same incredible story. Massive alien ships had arrived in orbit and politely asked humanity to become their slaves. The response from planet Earth was not what anyone expected. Major Kyung sat in the Global Defense Command Center surrounded by screens showing the alien fleet. She had been put in charge of humanity's official response to the Valerian Dominion. Her military training had prepared her for many scenarios, but none of them involved aliens who sounded like insurance salesmen trying to sell death policies. The laughter started in Seoul, where the first broadcast had originated. Students at the university began sharing clips of Supreme Overlord Vexton explaining survival rates like he was discussing warranty coverage on kitchen appliances. The clips went viral within minutes, and soon the entire planet was watching aliens try to convince humans that slavery was actually a great career opportunity. Major Kyung received calls from world leaders who were all asking the same question: how should humanity respond to this ridiculous situation? The President of the United States was laughing so hard during their video call that he could barely speak. The Prime Minister of Britain kept apologizing for giggling during what should have been a serious military briefing. The response that Major Kyung crafted became legendary. Throughout the galaxy, within hours, she stood in front of cameras broadcasting to both Earth and the alien fleet above. Her uniform was perfectly pressed, and her expression was completely professional, as if she was declining a dinner invitation rather than rejecting galactic conquest. Thank you, Supreme Overlord Vexton, for your generous offer. She began with the kind of polite tone used by customer service representatives. We have carefully reviewed your integration proposal, and while we appreciate the time and effort you put into your presentation, we must respectfully decline. She paused and smiled the way people do when they are about to deliver bad news to someone they actually feel sorry for. You see, we humans have already experimented with the slavery model a few centuries ago, and our customer satisfaction surveys indicated significant room for improvement. The feedback was overwhelmingly negative, so we discontinued that service. Major Kyung continued with the same professional courtesy. We understand that conquest and enslavement is your core business model, and we respect your commitment to your chosen field. However, we feel that this opportunity is not the right fit for our species. At this time, we wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. The broadcast ended with Major Kyung suggesting that the Valerian Dominion might want to consider diversifying their business portfolio, since the whole galactic empire thing seemed like a lot of work for relatively low job satisfaction. She even offered to put them in touch with some excellent career counselors if they were interested in exploring other options there. Haniel had been working frantically since the first alien contact, and his research paper was ready within 6 hours. The document was titled An Analysis of Valerian Dominion Social Structure with Recommendations for Organizational Improvement, and it was written in the dry academic language that made even exciting discoveries sound boring. The paper systematically destroyed every aspect of the alien empire using footnotes, citations, and peer-reviewed sources. Dr. Haniel pointed out that enslaving entire species was not only morally questionable but also economically inefficient. He included charts showing how voluntary cooperation produced better results than forced labor in every measurable category. What made the paper truly devastating was its helpful tone. Dr. Haniel wrote like a consultant trying to help a struggling business improve their operations. He offered practical suggestions for transitioning from an imperial model to a collaborative federation, complete with implementation timelines and budget projections. The paper was translated into dozens of languages and shared across every human network within hours. It became required reading in universities around the world, and students began writing their own papers analyzing various aspects of alien society. The Valerian Dominion found themselves the subject of thousands of academic studies, all offering helpful advice for improving their civilization. Social media exploded with content about the alien invasion, but not in the way anyone expected. Instead of panic and fear, the internet filled with memes, jokes, and satirical videos about the aliens' ridiculous demands. Comedy shows dedicated entire episodes to mocking the Valerian Dominion bureaucratic approach to conquest. Late night talk show hosts had a field day with Supreme Overlord Vexton speeches. They played clips of the alien explaining human relocation procedures, and added laugh tracks. Commentary shows analyzed the aliens' presentation style and offered constructive criticism about their public speaking techniques. The internet produced an endless stream of content that treated the invasion like entertainment rather than a threat. Humans created parody videos of aliens trying to sell slavery. Like a timeshare presentation, musicians wrote songs about the Valerian Dominion that made them sound like a pyramid scheme run by confused teenagers. Memes spread faster than the aliens could monitor them. Pictures of Supreme Overlord Vexton became templates for jokes about bad bosses, annoying coworkers, and terrible job interviews. The aliens found their conquest speeches being used to advertise everything from used cars to diet supplements. Gaming communities created online games where players could experience what it was like to be a confused alien trying to understand human behavior. The games became incredibly popular, and soon millions of people were spending their free time pretending to be frustrated. Valerian Dominion officers' art communities began creating elaborate works inspired by the alien visit. Painters drew pictures of Supreme Overlord Vexton looking confused while humans offered him coffee and asked about his feelings. Musicians composed symphonies that captured the absurdity of the entire situation. The response that truly confused the aliens was how humans began treating them like guests who had overstayed their welcome rather than military resistance or diplomatic negotiations. Humans simply started ignoring the invasion fleet and going about their daily lives as if nothing had happened. Restaurants began offering Galactic conquest specials that were just regular meals with silly names. Coffee shops put up signs saying, "We reserve the right to refuse service to Galactic Overlord." Store owners posted reviews of the alien invasion, giving it 1 star for poor customer service and lack of clear communication. Children drew pictures of the alien ships and turned them into art projects for school. Teachers used the invasion as a learning opportunity, discussing why slavery was wrong and how different cultures could work together instead of trying to conquer each other. The aliens' monitoring systems became overwhelmed with human communications that ranged from helpful to insulting to completely incomprehensible. They intercepted millions of messages that seemed to treat their mighty conquest fleet like a minor inconvenience or a source of entertainment. Supreme Overlord Vexton received thousands of personal messages from humans offering advice about his leadership style, career development, and what appeared to be dating tips. Many humans seemed genuinely concerned about his emotional well-being and suggested that maybe conquering galaxies was not making him happy. The Valerian Dominion had conquered 10,000 worlds, but they had never encountered a species that responded to invasion with customer service reviews, constructive criticism, and offers of free therapy. The humans were not resisting in any way that made sense according to their military protocols. Instead of fear, respect, or even hatred, the aliens were receiving pity, sympathy, and what appeared to be genuine concern for their mental health. The entire planet seemed to be treating them like confused individuals who needed guidance rather than mighty conquerors who demanded obedience. The most insulting part was that humans seemed to believe the Valerian Dominion could do better if they just applied themselves and maybe got some professional help. Captain Jinho stood on the bridge of the Sol Dawn and watched the stars disappear one by one. The massive alien ships were so big they blocked out the sun completely. The bridge crew stared at their screens in amazement as more and more ships kept appearing in Earth orbit. The alien vessels looked like floating cities made of dark metal and covered in golden symbols that glowed with their own light. Each ship was at least 10 times bigger than anything humans had ever built. The smallest alien ship could probably carry the entire population of Sol with room to spare. Lieutenant Sunho ran his hands through his hair and shook his head slowly. Nobody on Earth had expected this. The Sol Dawn was supposed to be humanity's first peaceful exploration mission to the outer planets. Now they found themselves face to face with what looked like the largest military fleet in the galaxy. Ambassador Myray stepped forward and activated the communication system. Her job was to handle first contact situations, but nothing in her training had prepared her for this. The alien ships had been broadcasting the same signal for 20 minutes, and it was finally time to answer. The main screen flickered to life and showed a creature that made Everyone on the bridge take a step backward. The alien was tall and thin with blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its face stared directly at them through the screen. Its mouth was too wide and filled with too many teeth. The creature wore what looked like a military uniform, covered in medals and ribbons that clinked together when it moved. Its voice was deep and smooth like honey poured over broken glass. When it spoke, every word sounded like it was being carefully measured and weighed. "I am Supreme Overlord Vexthan of the Valerian Dominion," the creature announced. "Your primitive world has been selected for integration into our glorious empire. This is not a request or negotiation. This is a notification of new management." Captain Jinho felt his jaw clench tightly. The alien's tone was the same one used by telemarketers who called during dinner or tax collectors who showed up at your door. The creature continued speaking as if it was reading from a boring government document. "Your species designation is now Labor Class 7. You will be relocated to mining facilities throughout our territory where you will contribute to the greater galactic economy. Previous planetary attachments are now void. Your new purpose is service to the Dominion." The alien held up a small device that looked like a tablet computer. The screen showed charts and graphs with pictures of humans working in what looked like underground tunnels. The presentation had the same cheerful corporate style as a fast food training video. Each human unit will be assigned a work sector based on physical capabilities and basic intelligence testing. Recreation periods will be limited to 30 standard minutes per galactic day. Nutrition supplements will be provided at regular intervals to maintain optimal work performance. Lieutenant Sunho made a choking sound that might have been laughter or horror. Ambassador Mireille raised her hand politely as if she was in a classroom asking a question. The alien paused and tilted its head to one side like a confused dog. "Excuse me," she said in her most diplomatic voice, "but I think there might be some misunderstanding. We appreciate your offer, but humans prefer to make their own career choices." The alien blinked all 4 eyes in sequence, which was somehow more disturbing than if it had blinked them all at once. "Career choices," it repeated slowly, as if the words were in a foreign language. "Labor class 7 species do not make choices. Choices are made for them by their superiors." Captain Jinho stepped forward and crossed his arms over his chest. "That sounds like slavery with extra steps," he said. The alien looked genuinely puzzled by this statement. "Slavery is an inefficient system," the creature explained patiently. "Our integration process provides structure, purpose, and direction to primitive species. Without our guidance, your kind would waste time on meaningless pursuits like art, music, or individual happiness." The bridge crew exchanged glances that mixed disbelief with growing anger. Dr. Haniel, the ship's science officer, started typing furiously on his computer. His face was turning red and his fingers were hitting the keys harder than necessary. "Your technological development suggests basic intelligence," Supreme Overlord Vexthan continued. "Therefore, you will be suitable for mineral extraction operations on worlds where more advanced species prefer not to work. The environments may be challenging, but survival rates are acceptable." "What exactly do you mean by acceptable survival rates?" Ambassador Mireille asked. Her diplomatic training was being pushed to its absolute limits. "Approximately 60% of Labor Class 7 species complete their first standard work cycle," the alien replied as if discussing weather conditions. "This rate improves to 75% after initial adaptation period. Those who do not adapt are recycled into the system through alternate channels." Captain Jinho felt something cold crawl up his spine. The alien was discussing the deaths of billions of people like a factory manager talking about production quotas. The creature seemed completely unaware that anything it was saying might be considered offensive or threatening. "We have successfully integrated over 10,000 worlds into our empire," the alien continued with obvious pride. "Each species initially expresses similar concerns, but adaptation always occurs. Resistance is inefficient and ultimately futile. Our methods have been tested and proven effective." The alien gestured to something off-screen, and the image changed to show a map of the galaxy. Thousands of star systems were marked with the same golden symbol that decorated the alien fleet. Each dot represented an entire world full of beings who had been conquered and enslaved. "Your world will be designated as Extraction Zone 479. 9 production will begin within 1 standard galactic month. All human units will report To transport vessels for immediate relocation, any questions or concerns should be directed to your assigned sector supervisor's lieutenant. Sunho started laughing. It began as a quiet chuckle but grew louder and more uncontrolled until tears were streaming down his face. The alien stared at him with obvious confusion while the rest of the bridge crew tried to process what they had just heard. D'Arhaniel looked up from his computer and shook his head slowly. These guys have conquered 10,000 worlds, and they think we're just going to say, okay, sure, sounds great. When do we start? The alien seemed to notice the laughter for the first time, and its 4 eyes focused on Lieutenant Sunho with what might have been concern. Is this human unit experiencing a malfunction? It asked Ambassador Mireille. Should we arrange for immediate medical evaluation? Ambassador Mireille took a deep breath and looked directly at the alien with the kind of smile usually reserved for dealing with difficult children. Thank you for your detailed presentation, she said slowly, but I think you may have misunderstood something about humans. The alien tilted its head again. What misunderstanding could there be? The process is clearly outlined and has been successfully implemented throughout the galaxy. Well, Captain Jinho said, stepping up beside Ambassador Mireille. The thing is, we already tried the whole slavery approach a few hundred years ago and decided it wasn't really working out for us. So thanks, but no thanks. The alien stared at them in complete silence for several long seconds. Its mouth opened and closed without making any sound, as if it was trying to process information that did not fit into any of its programming. The golden symbols on its uniform seemed to flicker slightly. This response is not within acceptable parameters. It finally said, compliance is not optional for labor class 7 species. Captain Jinho shrugged and smiled. That sounds like a you problem, not a us problem. Supreme Overlord Vexthan paced back and forth across the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dominance, while his officers stared at their screens in complete confusion. Never in the 10,000-year history of the Valerian Empire had they encountered a species that responded to conquest with helpful suggestions and career advice. The aliens held emergency strategy meetings every few hours, trying to understand what was happening on the planet below them. Their military analysts ran constant reports, but every conclusion seemed more impossible than the last. The humans were not showing any signs of fear, panic, or the usual submission responses that conquered species displayed. Admiral Zorthuk, the Empire's chief military strategist, stood before a wall of screens showing human communication intercepts. The data made no sense according to any known psychological warfare models. Humans were treating the invasion like a mild weather event that might ruin their weekend plans, but nothing more serious than that. Supreme Overlord, these creatures appear to be suffering from some form of species-wide mental deficiency, Admiral Zorthek reported while pointing at charts showing human response patterns. They seem incapable of recognizing danger or understanding the concept of superior force. The other officers nodded in agreement as they reviewed the intelligence reports. Humans were going to work, attending school, and having dinner parties as if nothing unusual was happening. Some were even planning vacations and making weekend plans that extended weeks into the future when they should have been preparing for relocation communications. Officer Pyleth raised one of her 4 arms to get attention. Sir, we have received over 50,000 personal messages addressed to you directly. Most appear to be offering what they call life coaching services. Several humans have sent you books about stress management and career satisfaction. Supreme Overlord Vexthan felt something that might have been a headache building behind his primary eyes. The humans were not just ignoring his conquest. They were trying to help him with what they seemed to think were personal problems. He had never experienced anything like this in his centuries of military service. Call for reinforcements, he ordered, his voice carrying a note of desperation that surprised everyone on the bridge. If these creatures have some form of advanced psychological warfare technology, we need specialists to counter it. Send for the mind control division immediately. While they waited for reinforcements, the Valerian fleet tried to establish a proper military blockade around Earth. Colonel Sojin was put in charge of the human response, and her strategy was unlike anything the aliens had ever encountered. She called it aggressive inconvenience. Human ships began following the alien vessels around the solar system, not to attack them but to be annoying in creative ways. Small civilian craft would fly alongside massive alien warships, playing loud music broadcasting cooking shows, and generally acting like the most irritating neighbors imaginable. The Sol Dawn led a convoy of human ships that seemed dedicated to making the aliens as uncomfortable as possible. Captain Jinho would pull his ship alongside alien vessels and wave cheerfully at their view screens. Sometimes he would hold up signs asking if the aliens needed directions or wanted to try some Korean barbecue. Dr. Haniel had somehow managed to hack into the alien communication systems, not to steal military secrets or sabotage their equipment, but to send them educational content about human culture. The aliens found their networks flooded with everything from children's cartoons to university lectures about philosophy. The cultural exchange program, as Dr. Haniel called it, sent the aliens an endless stream of human entertainment. Music videos, cooking tutorials, nature documentaries, and what appeared to be instructional materials about pet care filled their communication channels. Captain Minho organized teams of human technicians who offered to help the aliens with what appeared to be maintenance problems on their ships. The humans had noticed that several alien vessels were making unusual noises, and they were genuinely concerned that the aliens might be having mechanical difficulties. The offers of technical assistance were completely sincere, but they drove the Valerian officers to distraction. Human engineering teams would broadcast detailed suggestions for improving alien ship designs along with helpful tips about proper maintenance schedules and fuel efficiency. Lieutenant Sun Ho led a group that started raiding the aliens' military demonstrations. When the Valerian fleet destroyed a few asteroids to show their superior firepower, humans responded by scoring the explosions like an Olympic event. They offered constructive criticism about timing, artistic composition, and suggested ways to make future displays more impressive. The aliens tried various intimidation tactics, but every attempt backfired in ways they could not understand. When they demonstrated their advanced weapons, humans treated it like a fireworks show. When they showed footage of conquered worlds, humans responded with travel reviews and recommendations for better tourist attractions. Most confusing of all was how humans kept trying to start conversations with the alien fleet. Personal messages poured in from Earth asking about alien culture, food preferences, and whether they were happy with their current living situations. Many humans seemed genuinely interested in making friends with their would-be conqueror's ambassador. Mireille organized cultural exchange events where humans would broadcast information about Earth, customs, holidays, and social traditions to the alien fleet. She seemed to believe that the conquest was really just a big misunderstanding that could be resolved through better communication. The psychological impact on the Valerian forces was severe. Admiral Zorthek reported increasing cases of what appeared to be confusion disorders among his officers. Many were beginning to question standard military procedures, and some had started asking why they were conquering species instead of trying to be friends with them. Commander Thexus reported that several of his junior officers had requested permission to visit Earth for what they called cultural learning experiences. They wanted to try human food, attend human schools, and participate in what humans called weekend activities. The requests were completely outside military protocol. The aliens' monitoring equipment picked up millions of human communications that seemed designed to be helpful rather than hostile. Humans were sharing recipes, offering dating advice, and providing detailed instructions for various hobbies and recreational activities. What disturbed the Valerian leadership most was that humans seemed to genuinely care about alien well-being. Many messages expressed concern that conquering galaxies might be stressful and offered suggestions for relaxation techniques, meditation, and what they called work life balance. Dr. Haniel published another research paper, this one analyzing Valerian military tactics and offering improvements. The paper was written in the same helpful tone as his previous work and included suggestions for more efficient fleet formations, better communication protocols, and strategies for improving morale among conquered species. The paper somehow made its way into alien computer systems and was being read by Valerian officers throughout the fleet. Many found themselves taking notes and considering whether the human suggestions might actually improve their military effectiveness. Supreme Overlord Vexton realized that his mighty conquest fleet was slowly being transformed into something resembling a very confused social club. His officers were reading human self-help books Discussing Earth philosophy and asking questions about feelings and personal fulfillment, the most disturbing report came from Security Chief Vaxman, who discovered that some alien crew members had started writing thank you notes to humans who had sent them helpful advice. Several officers had requested permission to send return messages asking for more information about human customs. The Valerian Dominion had successfully conquered 10,000 worlds using intimidation, superior technology, and overwhelming force, but somehow a species that offered them cooking tips and career counseling was proving to be their most challenging opponent. Aliens were beginning to suspect that humans might not be suffering from mental deficiency at all. Instead, they were starting to wonder if maybe the Valerian approach to galactic relations was missing something important. The news about humanity's response to the Valerian Dominion spread across the galaxy faster than the aliens could contain it. Their communication networks had been designed to control information flow between conquered worlds, but they had never anticipated needing to stop the spread of comedy videos and self-help advice. On the mining world of Kepler-7, a group of enslaved creatures called the Zephyrians were secretly watching human broadcasts on hidden communication devices. They had been conquered 50 years ago and forced to work in underground mines extracting precious metals for the Valerian Empire worker designation ZK-7739, whose real name was Blip, watched Captain Jinho waving cheerfully at alien warships while offering them snacks. The Zephyrians stared at the screen with growing amazement as humans treated the mighty Valerian fleet like annoying door-to-door salespeople who would not take no for an answer. The humans just said no, Blip whispered to his fellow workers. They told the Dominion thanks, but no thanks, and went back to their regular lives like nothing happened. The other Zephyrians gathered around the small screen, hardly believing what they were seeing. On the agricultural world of Centauri Prime, enslaved farmers were sharing copies of Dr. Haniel's research papers. The documents had been translated into dozens of galactic languages and were spreading through underground networks faster than the Valerian sensors could stop them. A creature named Vloop, who had been forced to grow food for the Empire, read the paper about organizational improvement with growing excitement. The human had analyzed their entire imperial system and pointed out exactly why it was inefficient, wasteful, and ultimately doomed to failure. The humans are right, Vloop told the other farmers during their brief rest period. We could have just said no when they arrived. We could have told them their business model was stupid and offered to help them find better jobs. Instead, similar conversations were happening on thousands of conquered worlds throughout the galaxy. Species that had submitted to Valerian rule decades or centuries ago were suddenly questioning why they had given up so easily. Many were beginning to realize that the Dominion was not actually invincible. Engineer Taeyun had been studying alien technology since the first contact, and his discoveries were remarkable. The Valerian ship's computers and weapon systems were incredibly advanced, but they had a critical weakness. They were designed to counter traditional military resistance, not creative problem-solving. Human engineers began developing countermeasures that confused alien computers. Instead of trying to destroy them, they created devices that played music at frequencies that interfered with navigation systems. The alien ships would receive the signals and automatically adjust their course to avoid what they thought were dangerous obstacles. The humans built holographic projectors that made alien ships appear to be covered in glittery decorations, bright colors, and what looked like party supplies. The projections did not damage the ships, but they made the fearsome Valerian fleet look like they were heading to a children's birthday party. Captain Minho organized teams that followed alien patrol ships around the solar system, offering technical support and maintenance advice. The humans had noticed that several alien vessels were operating below optimal efficiency, and they genuinely wanted to help fix the problems. The technical assistance was completely sincere, but it had an unexpected psychological effect on the alien crews. Many Valerian officers found themselves looking forward to the daily visits from helpful human engineers who offered coffee and asked about their personal lives. Ambassador Yunhee began receiving secret messages from conquered species throughout the galaxy. They were asking for advice about how to deal with the Valerian Dominion. Many wanted to know if it was really possible to simply refuse conquest and offer career counseling instead. She responded by creating a simple guide called How to Politely Decline Imperial Conquest. The document became the most widely distributed piece of writing in galactic history. It was translated into every known language and shared through communication networks across thousands of worlds. The guide included helpful tips like maintaining eye contact using a firm but friendly tone and offering alternative suggestions for the aliens' career development. It explained how to express genuine concern for the well-being of would-be conquerors, while firmly declining their services on the industrial world of Proxima Station. A revolution began. When factory workers started following the human guide, they politely informed their Valerian overseers that the current working arrangements were not satisfactory and offered to help them find more fulfilling career opportunities. The overseers were completely unprepared for this response. Their training had covered dealing with violent uprisings, desperate escape attempts, and sullen compliance, but no one had taught them how to handle conquered species who offered them life coaching. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as conquered worlds began applying human techniques. Worker strikes turned into career counseling sessions. Military occupations became group therapy discussions, and tribute deliveries were replaced with offers of friendship and cultural exchange. The Valerian Dominion found themselves dealing with thousands of worlds that suddenly wanted better working conditions, vacation time, casual dress codes, and what the humans called employee benefits. Many conquered species began demanding representation in galactic government and the right to vote on imperial policies. Supreme Overlord Vexton received reports from across the Empire describing the same impossible situation. Conquered worlds were not rebelling in any traditional sense. Instead, they were treating the Valerian Dominion like a poorly managed company that needed help improving its corporate culture. The psychological impact on Valerian forces throughout the galaxy was devastating. Many officers began questioning the fundamental principles of their civilization. Some started asking why they were conquering species instead of trying to make friends with them. Commander Thexus reported that recruitment for the Imperial military had dropped dramatically. Young Valerians were reading human philosophy and asking uncomfortable questions about the ethics of galactic conquest. Many were requesting transfers to what they called peaceful exploration divisions. The aliens' most advanced psychological warfare specialists arrived from the furthest reaches of the Empire, only to discover that their techniques were completely ineffective against beings who responded to mental attacks with constructive criticism and helpful suggestions. Captain Gina was the first human subjected to advanced Valerian fear projection technology. The aliens expected her to break down in terror, but instead she critiqued their understanding of human psychology and offered to help them develop more culturally sensitive approaches. Your fear projections are too generic, she explained to the confused alien specialists. You need to understand individual cultural contexts and personal backgrounds to create effective psychological responses. I could put together a training workshop if you are interested. The specialists found themselves taking notes and asking questions about human emotional responses. Their entire field of expertise was being revolutionized by a species that treated psychological warfare like an uninteresting academic subject. Dr. Young-ho led research teams that were studying alien technology and quickly identifying numerous improvements instead of keeping their discoveries secret. The humans published their findings and offered to share the upgrades for free. The gesture was so unexpectedly generous that it caused a philosophical crisis among alien leadership. Many Valerian officers could not understand why a species under attack would offer to help their attackers build better weapons. The humans explained that improved technology would benefit everyone and that sharing knowledge was more important than maintaining military advantages. This concept was so foreign to Valerian thinking that many aliens began questioning everything they had been taught about conquest and competition across the galaxy. Conquered species were beginning to stand up to their Valerian overlords, not with violence or desperate resistance, but with polite refusal, helpful advice, and genuine concern for alien well-being. The mighty Valerian Dominion was discovering that their greatest weakness was not superior weapons or advanced technology, but simple kindness offered by beings who refused to be intimidated. Supreme Overlord Vexton stood in the war room of his flagship, surrounded by the highest-ranking officers in the Valerian Empire. The reports covering every surface told the same impossible story. Their galactic dominion was falling apart, not because of military defeat, but because conquered species were politely asking for better working conditions. The empire that had ruled for 10,000 years was facing its greatest crisis, and the enemy was a species that offered cooking tips and career advice. Admiral Zorthok placed the latest intelligence reports on the central table with hands that shook slightly from what might have been fear or confusion. Sir, the Psychological Warfare Division has arrived from the core worlds. They are our most experienced specialists in breaking the will of resistant species, their leader claims. They can have the humans begging for mercy within one galactic standard day. The door to the war room opened and General Nixeth entered with an air of supreme confidence. She was the Empire's most feared psychological warfare expert, responsible for breaking the spirits of countless worlds. Her reputation was legendary among conquered species who whispered her name in terror. General Nixeth examined the human communication intercepts with the kind of clinical detachment that had made her famous. Her 4 eyes moved rapidly across the data, while her assistants set up advanced mind manipulation equipment that had never failed to crush resistance. These creatures appear to have developed immunity to standard fear protocols, she announced after reviewing the files. We will need to use our most advanced techniques. Fear projection, despair induction, and hopelessness amplification applied simultaneously should break their mental defenses within hours. The first human subject brought aboard the Valerian flagship was Captain Gina, who had volunteered for what she called a cultural exchange opportunity. She walked into the psychological warfare chamber with the same casual confidence someone might have entering a coffee shop. General Nixeth activated the fear projection system, expecting to see the human collapse in terror as horrific images filled her mind. Instead, Captain Gina studied the projections with obvious professional interest and began taking notes on a small pad she had brought with her. These are fascinating, she said, while examining the holographic nightmares surrounding her. Your understanding of human fear responses is quite sophisticated, but I think you might be missing some key cultural elements. Would you mind if I offered some feedback? The general stared in disbelief as the human began critiquing their most advanced psychological warfare techniques. Captain Gina pointed out that the fear projections were too generic and lacked the personal touches that would make them truly effective against individual subjects. You are using a one-size-fits-all approach, she explained helpfully, but humans have very diverse backgrounds and cultural contexts. What terrifies someone from Seoul might not affect someone from Lagos at all. You need to customize your approach for maximum effectiveness. General Nixeth tried the despair induction system, which was designed to make subjects feel completely hopeless about their situation. Captain Gina experienced the emotional assault and then began analyzing the technique from what appeared to be an academic perspective. This is interesting, she said, while the despair rays continued hitting her. You are trying to induce chemical depression, but you are not accounting for human resilience factors. Many humans have natural coping mechanisms that would counteract this approach. Have you considered therapy-based solutions instead? The psychological warfare specialists tried every technique in their arsenal, but each attempt backfired more spectacularly than the last. Captain Gina responded to mind control attempts by offering suggestions for improving alien mental health. She treated torture simulations like interesting virtual reality experiences. When they tried to break her will through isolation, she used the quiet time to write a detailed analysis of Valerian psychological warfare techniques. The paper included helpful suggestions for making their methods more humane and effective. Meanwhile, the Economic Warfare Division attempted to blockade Earth trade routes, only to discover that humans had already established direct relationships with species throughout the galaxy. Human merchants were bypassing Valerian-controlled systems entirely and often negotiating better deals than the Empire had ever offered. Captain Sujin led human trading expeditions that completely ignored Imperial blockades. Human ships would arrive at conquered worlds offering fair prices for goods and services, while treating local populations like valued business partners instead of enslaved labor. The aliens discovered that human merchants were actually improving economic conditions on worlds throughout the galaxy. Fair trade practices, competitive pricing, and respect for worker rights were concepts that many species had never experienced under Valerian Ruldear Youngho published his analysis of alien technology improvements in journals throughout the galaxy. Instead of keeping military advantages secret, he shared blueprints for better weapons, more efficient ships, and improved communication systems with anyone who wanted them. The gesture caused a complete breakdown in imperial military strategy. Conquered species began building their own improved versions of Valerian technology, often using human designs that were more advanced than anything the Empire possessed. What made the situation even more desperate was that humans continued treating their would-be conquerors with genuine kindness. Prisoners taken by the aliens were polite, cooperative, and constantly offering to help with various tasks around the ship. Valerian officers found themselves looking forward to conversations with human captives who asked about their personal lives, offered advice about career development, and seemed genuinely interested in their well-being as individuals. Lieutenant Sun Ho spent his time in captivity organizing what he called team-building exercises for the alien crew. He led discussion groups about communication skills, conflict resolution, and stress management that became surprisingly popular among Valerian personnel. The aliens began requesting assignment to ships that held human prisoners because the captives made their work environment more pleasant. Human prisoners would help with routine tasks, offer suggestions for improving ship operations, and provide emotional support for homesick alien crew members. Ambassador Mireille was captured during a diplomatic mission, but instead of being interrogated, she ended up conducting informal therapy sessions for confused Valerian officers. Many aliens found themselves sharing personal problems with someone who listened without judgment and offered practical advice. The most devastating blow came when human prisoners began teaching alien guards about concepts like friendship, cooperation, and mutual respect. Many Valerian soldiers had never experienced relationships based on equality and genuine caring. Commander Thexus reported that discipline among his forces was completely breaking down. Soldiers were requesting permission to help human prisoners with their projects. Officers were asking for advice about personal relationships, and many crew members had started celebrating human holidays. The Valerian Empire was discovering that their greatest weapon, conquest through superior force, was completely useless against beings who responded to every threat with offers of friendship and genuine concern for their attackers' well-being. General Nixith submitted her final report admitting complete defeat. The Psychological Warfare Division had been not only unsuccessful but had actually been psychologically affected by their human subjects. Many specialists were now requesting transfers to peaceful exploration duty. Supreme Overlord Vexlin realized that his mighty empire was being conquered not by superior weapons or advanced technology, but by simple human decency offered freely to beings who had come to destroy them. The aliens were learning that kindness was more powerful than any weapon they possessed, and somehow this knowledge was more terrifying than any military defeat they had ever experienced. Supreme Overlord Vexlin stood before the communication array of his flagship, preparing to make what might be the most difficult transmission of his long military career. The Valerian Empire was crumbling not from external attack but from an internal crisis caused by beings who offered friendship to their enemies. The message he sent to Earth was unlike anything in the history of galactic conquest. He requested a face-to-face meeting with human leadership to discuss terms for resolving the situation. The words felt strange in his mouth, as if he was speaking a foreign language. President Suyang received the alien request with the same casual grace she had shown throughout the entire crisis. She responded by inviting Supreme Overlord Vexlin to dinner at the presidential residence as if he was a visiting dignitary rather than the leader of an invasion force. The invitation included detailed instructions for dietary requirements, parking arrangements, and a polite note mentioning that the dinner would be casual dress, so the alien leader should feel free to leave his formal military decorations at home if he preferred. Supreme Overlord Vexlin arrived on Earth expecting a formal surrender ceremony or at least a tense negotiation session. Instead, he found himself being welcomed into a comfortable dining room where the table was set with what appeared to be the same care given to beloved family gatherings. President Suyang greeted him with the kind of warm hospitality usually reserved for old friends who had dropped by unexpectedly. She asked about his flight, offered him something to drink, and inquired whether he had any food allergies or dietary restrictions she should know about. The other dinner guests included Ambassador Mireille, Dr. Hanyo, Captain Jinho, and several other humans who had been involved in the response to the invasion. They treated the Supreme Overlord like an interesting new acquaintance rather than a would-be conqueror. The conversation during dinner flowed naturally from topics about galactic politics to discussions of food preparation techniques. Valerian officers who had accompanied their leader found themselves sharing family stories and personal interests with humans who listened with genuine curiosity. Dr. Hanyo asked thoughtful questions about Valerian culture, history, and social development. He seemed genuinely interested in understanding how their imperial system had evolved and what factors had led to their current approach to galactic relations. Captain Jinho shared stories about human exploration and the excitement of discovering new worlds and meeting new species. He spoke about humanity's dreams of peaceful cooperation among different civilizations and the potential for shared learning and cultural exchange. The alien officers began to realize that these humans were not afraid of them, impressed by their power, or even particularly concerned about their military capabilities. The humans were treating them like confused individuals who needed guidance and support. Ambassador Mireille explained that humans had gone through their own periods of conquest and empire building, but had gradually learned that cooperation produced better results than domination. She offered to share historical documents about how human societies had evolved beyond imperial models. The most devastating moment came when young Jiwan, a university student, presented Supreme Overlord Vexthan with a carefully prepared analysis of Valerian governmental structure. She had spent weeks researching their system and preparing recommendations for improvement. The presentation was delivered with the patience of someone helping a friend with homework. Jiwan explained exactly why their imperial system was unsustainable, economically inefficient, and ultimately harmful to both conquerors and conquered species. She offered detailed suggestions for transitioning from an imperial model to a collaborative federation. The proposal included implementation timelines, budget projections, and strategies for managing the change process across thousands of worlds. The charts and graphs showed how voluntary cooperation could produce better economic results, higher productivity, and greater innovation than forced labor systems. The presentation demonstrated that the Valerian Empire was actually holding back galactic development rather than advancing its supreme Overlord. Vexthan sat in stunned silence as a young human student systematically dismantled everything his civilization had built over 10,000 years. She offered these insights not as weapons to hurt him, but as gifts to help his people build something better. The other alien officers found themselves taking notes and asking questions about the proposed reforms. Many admitted that they had never considered alternatives to their current system and were surprised to learn that other approaches might be more effective. The dinner concluded with President Su Yang presenting each alien guest with a collection of books about government cooperation, economics, and social development. She explained that these were gifts from the people of Earth to help their new friends explore different approaches to civilization. The breaking point came when the humans extended a formal invitation for the Valerian Dominion to join a proposed Galactic Cooperation Council. The organization would be based on voluntary membership, mutual respect, and shared decision-making rather than conquest and domination. The invitation was presented not as a surrender demand or peace treaty, but as a genuine offer of friendship and partnership. The humans explained that they believed the Valerian people had valuable contributions to make to galactic civilization once they moved beyond their current imperial phase. Supreme Overlord Vexthan realized that he had been completely defeated, but not in any way. That his military training had prepared him for the humans had conquered his mighty empire through overwhelming kindness, genuine concern, and offers of selfless assistance. The alien fleet withdrew from Earth orbit not because they had been driven away by superior force, but because they were too embarrassed to continue their conquest, had been defeated by beings who treated them like confused neighbors who needed help rather than mighty conquerors who demanded respect. Valerian Dominion officially announced the end of their invasion attempt in a statement that became the Most widely mocked document in galactic history, they explain that after careful consideration they had decided that Earth was not suitable for integration into their empire. The real reason, which everyone throughout the galaxy understood, was that the humans had made them feel foolish, ashamed, and desperately in need of better life choices. The aliens had been conquered not by weapons or technology, but by superior kindness. President Suyao issued a response thanking the Valerian Dominion for their visit and expressing hope that they would stay in touch. The statement included contact information for human career counselors, therapists, and life coaches in case any aliens needed professional guidance. The invitation remained open for the Valerian people to join the galactic community as equals rather than conquerors. The humans made it clear that they would welcome their former enemies as friends once the aliens figured out their organizational and emotional issues. Supreme Overlord Vexton left Earth carrying human-authored self-help books, economic reform proposals, and standing invitations to return for dinner whenever he wanted to talk about his feelings or ask for advice about governing a galactic civilization. The ultimate insult was that humanity had extended genuine friendship to beings who had come to enslave them. The humans treated the Valerian Dominion not as defeated enemies but as neighbors who just needed a little help getting their lives together. The aliens departed knowing they had been conquered by superior beings, but the conquest had been achieved through kindness rather than force. The defeat felt more complete and devastating than any military loss could have been throughout the galaxy. Conquered species began following the human example of polite refusal, helpful advice, and genuine concern for their oppressors. The Valerian Empire crumbled not through revolution but through overwhelming offers of friendship and support. The humans had won the most insulting victory in galactic history by treating their would-be conquerors like friends who needed help rather than enemies who deserved destruction.